Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Gaynor.
Okay, happy Halloween to everybody.
Ooh, happy Halloween. Hope
Boo.
you all carved your pumpkins.
Yeah, it's the one good thing. I like to see all the kids go out and have a really fun time dressed up and trick or treating and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good time. But we're going to hit like a little bit of scary stuff here.
Real life.
So real life exorcism of Emily Rose. He's way scarier than the movie. Now the movie was pretty scary, wasn't it?
Did you watch The Exorcist?
So I have seen it. Yeah, a long time ago.
They did the one that was like way back in the 70s.
They did a revamp recently. And it's due to come out recently.
I think then there's another one that is more updated.
I think there's one in the works, to come out soon, if it's not out already.
There is.
Maybe it's out today, I don't know. But anyway, let's get into it. The real life exorcism of Emily Rose is way scarier than the movie.
The 70s were a big decade for Lucifer. The Exorcist came out in late '73. Anton LaVey was really feeling himself with the growing popularity of his Church of Satan, and his book, The Satanic Bible, was really hitting its stride. This enigmatic mixture of satanic hysteria was a perfect storm that set up one of the most horrific cases of child abuse by way of religious ceremony and tradition. In this video, we'll uncover the violent truths that still shroud Anneliese Michel's death and the 67 exorcisms she endured, which inspired the exorcism of Emily Rose. But before we get started, now's a great time to subscribe to Weird History. Leave us a comment and let us know what strange phenomenon or person you'd like us to cover next. Now let's go back to the mid-70s, when casting demons out of people was as popular as disco. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21st, 1952, to a fairly normal Bavarian family in West Germany. The Michels were heavily into Catholicism, but that wasn't all that surprising considering 70% of the almost 11 million residents were Catholic at the time. Still, Anneliese's family was more religious than most. Her parents forced her and her three sisters to go to Catholic Mass twice a week. Her mother in particular pushed her to pray and devote as much extra time as possible towards religious devotion. According to the doctors Anneliese met with later, she developed neurosis related to religious iconography as a result of punishments inflicted upon her as a young girl. Remember this diagnosis, as it'll come into play later. Still, as religiously oppressive as the Michel house was, Anneliese's friends said she was initially a great student, showed strength in language study, and was happy and playful. The constant helicopter parenting and strict religious upbringing she had to endure would come back to haunt the family, almost literally several years later. Whether it was possession or mental illness, Anneliese's condition began rather gradually over a period of years. While at school one day in 1968, a then 16-year-old Anneliese unexpectedly blacked out for a few minutes. During this first documented blackout, her classmates said she fell into a trance-like state. Anneliese says she didn't remember the event and claims she was fine after the ordeal, but the same night she woke up feeling like there was a presence pressing heavily down on her body, and then went to bed. Anneliese's parents kept her home the following day, and it seemed like it was a one-off occurrence. Anneliese said she felt fine, and she was until August of 1968. Less than a year later, Anneliese experienced a similar episode and was taken to a local hospital to determine what had happened. Her doctor, Dr. Vogt, referred her to a neurologist, Dr. Siegfried Luthi. After an examination and a series of tests, Dr. Luthi couldn't find anything wrong with her brain function. Physically, Anneliese seemed completely healthy, a clean bill of health. It wasn't until sometime in February of 1970 that Anneliese experienced a third event.
Must be hard going through such sort of like trauma as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, the upbringing you've had in such a strict sort of like religious family with punishment and torture that went along with, you know, with the way you behaved and your upbringing.
Yeah.
And then sort of like once you get to a mature age and your brain's starting to mature a little bit more when you're, you know, into your late teens, that you're going through this sort of trauma. And it's, you know, is it a mental illness or do you think it was possession? I'll make a judgment at the end.
Yeah,
I'll have to watch the video
first. I don't know because, you know, I've said before, I think children should be able to make their own mind up on what they want to do. You know, these guidelines. But if you say to somebody, you cannot do this, you can't do that, they're going to rebel,
aren't they?
They're going to rebel, or you know,
be brainwashed.
Yeah.
After catching tuberculosis and spending months in a hospital, Anneliese had her third blackout. When the other patients in the hospital found out she had wet her bed during her blackout, they openly mocked her and excluded her from any group activity. This third blackout was different, though. Annalisa said she saw colors, heard sounds, and experienced feelings of euphoria while praying with her rosary beads. After more tests, a second neurologist, Dr. von Haller, diagnosed her with epilepsy and prescribed her medication. That's when Annalisa's condition got worse. Annalisa eventually returned to school later in 1970, but now she was depressed and withdrawn around her friends, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the frequency of her seizures increased. Her doctor's visits offered no insight into where the root of her seizures were coming from, which only compounded her family's frustration with the situation. Annalisa pressed on, though. She threw herself into researching Catholicism while finishing up high school, and in 1973, she enrolled at the University of Würzburg to become a teacher. She continued to take medication during this time, but her condition was rapidly worsening. By mid-73, Annalisa experienced hallucinations while praying and believed she was damned. She was obsessed with the idea that the devil was inside her and began to see a priest along with her doctors. By late 73, Annalisa's strange behavior and erratic symptoms kicked into overdrive. Her parents took her out of college and kept her confined, mostly to her bedroom. It was during this time when she started taking Tegretol, an anti-seizure drug and mood stabilizer. It should also be noted that at this time, Annalisa said she heard a knocking in her bedroom. Her sisters confirmed that they heard the knocking as well. She also said she heard a voice that would regularly damn her to hell. Despite taking her daily cocktail of neuroleptic medications, Annalisa's symptoms worsened. She started growling like an animal, she saw demons, and she exhibited Hulk-like strength to the point that she'd throw her sister around the house like a rag doll. She'd also lick her urine off the floor, chew coal, rip her clothes off, and eat insects she found around the house. Religious items like crucifixes and holy water also drove her mad. Her mother said she once caught Annalisa staring at a framed portrait of the Virgin Mary. She said her daughter's eyeballs were 100% jet black. This all sounds like the classic symptoms of what the church would consider demonic possession. Annalisa's family eventually asked several local priests for an exorcism, but the men declined and encouraged the Michels to continue with the traditional medical treatment she was already receiving. Besides, it wasn't that easy. A Catholic exorcism required the bishop's permission. Sometime in September of 1973, the Michels met Father Ernst Alt, a local priest who, upon meeting Annalisa, almost immediately said she didn't look like an epileptic and claimed she wasn't suffering from seizures. Father Alt was convinced she was...
Do you take medication for epilepsy?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. Because I was starting to think maybe she's got some sort of mental health issues, but once you put somebody on the right medication, it stabilises.
If it's the right medication.
Yeah, and then when you stop, it comes back again.
I mean, she's taking a cocktail there, they said, of neuromedicine.
Yeah.
So it's all brain-related medicine.
Yeah.
So it's going to have side effects and and different things going on.
Was possessed by demons and got the local bishop to give permission for the exorcism. Bishop Joseph Stangl eventually granted Father Arnold Renz permission to exorcise Annalisa in compliance with the Ritual Romanum of 1614, but ordered the exorcism to be done in complete secrecy. While Renz performed Annalisa's first exorcism on September 24, 1975, she began to talk about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priests of the modern church. Eventually, she stopped eating because she said she was not permitted to anymore. By this point, Annalisa's parents gave up consulting doctors and cut her off her medication. Instead, they relied solely on the exorcisms, 67 exorcisms in all, over an 11-month span in 1975 and 1976, to be exact. It wasn't unusual for Annalisa to endure 2 sessions a week, some sessions lasting up to 4 hours. And in audio recordings from the sessions, you can clearly hear Annalisa's distorted guttural voice. She growls like a wild beast, and you can hear the utterances she made in response to the religious ritual. And these all sound super creepy. The gruesome audio recordings during her exorcisms also reveal that Fathers Renz and Alt talked to 6 spirits allegedly possessing Annalisa. These spirits, or personalities if that's what they were, made up a murderer's row of evil incarnate. Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, Nero, Cain, Hitler, and Valentin Fleischmann, a disgraced Frankish priest from the 16th century. Given Annalisa's history with religion and her obsession with Christian teachings, there were later theories that Annalisa chose these figures intentionally. It's almost impossible not to agree. Despite being pretty much skin and bones at this point, Annalisa still had to be held down while her exorcisms took place. This abuse, along with a lack of medical treatment and food or water, took a toll on her body, and she died at home on July 1st, 1976. On her death certificate, it read that Annalisa ultimately died of malnutrition and dehydration, though her autopsy revealed she also had fractured teeth, 2 black eyes, and bruises on her hands, arms, and wrists. She also had broken knees and numerous wounds on her body.
Strange.
Fathers Alt and Renz, as well as Annalisa's parents, faced trial for a negligent homicide in 1978. The priest boldly maintained the exorcism was successful and liberated Annalisa from the demons possessing her. Alt even doubled down and insisted that some of Annalisa's wounds that were documented in her autopsy were the stigmata. The evidence didn't line up, though, and Annalisa's alleged demonic possession wasn't enough to sway the German court's 3-judge panel. All parties were found guilty, but their sentences varied. Alt and Renz were charged with manslaughter and given 6 months in prison with suspended sentences. Annalisa's parents received no punishment, as the German legal system deemed they had experienced enough suffering. So there's really only one main question to ask, and it's an important one. Was Annalisa Michael possessed by Satan or some other dark, sinister force? Or was she suffering from an undiagnosed mental illness? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos of our weird history.
I don't think she was possessed.
No, me neither. I don't believe in that.
No.
I think if there was such thing as possession, there'd be a lot more of it.
Yeah.
I think you come across it very, very often.
Yeah.
If there was such powerful force. But I just think it's definitely a trauma.
What I don't understand is normally if there's abuse in a family like that, the other children would also.
It depends how one behaves and how one's rebellious. And what punishment she'd been dished out as a child, because they did say punishment and what's it, didn't they, in the early part of the video. But I think definitely the mental illness, wrong medication maybe, or not the correct medication, just basic abuse of someone who was mentally unwell.
Because it said she was, studious at school and she was doing really well, and all of a sudden she just changed.
Yeah, it's a weird one. But me personally, I don't think possession is something that's a thing.
I don't think it's not real, but I don't think it's that bad.
Extreme.
7 or 8 different spirits.
Yeah, made up. It's like a mental thing, isn't it? Like made up people.
Yeah.
They weren't made up people.
Yeah.
But they were people they put in their own brain.
Yeah.
It's supposedly so. It's definitely a mental illness, I think.
Yeah, but I do believe.
My opinion.
But I do believe that there are, like I said before, I do believe there's spirits and ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there has to be,
It could be something there, but I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you think.
Yeah.
Very unusual story.
Yeah.
Which went on to be one of the probably one of the scariest films that's ever been out there.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to have a safe Halloween.
Yes.
And enjoy it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Cheers.